Hey, everybody, and welcome to this month's discussion of Tech Chat with the Trust Technology team here. This month, we're going to talk about Get Sassy about your security, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means and what it entails. But essentially, there's been a lot of discussion in the IT community, technology community about how traditional networks were impacted by things like the COVID pandemic and the rush for everybody to work from home, and how the traditional networks and traditional security solutions were not really poised to handle the influx of remote workers and mobile devices and things like that. And in order to solve that, it's overcomplicated in many cases. What you have to do to kind of protect your data, protect your network, and things like secure web gateways and increased VPNs and SD-WAN or software-defined wide area network. Those are all pieces that people have put together to adjust for that. But we're going to discuss a little bit today about kind of what the environment looks like today. And I do want to mention too, we've got some technical partners coming in. We're having a lunch and learn on July the 24th at 11:30 at Louisiana State University in Shreveport. We have done a program on this before, so we're calling this one Sassy Revisited. There's been new developments. There's been additional information. So join us with our partners from Cato and Windstream Enterprise for a little deep dive into this. But we're going to kind of kick this off, Mack, and I'm going to kind of pose the question to you first. How are people securing this new world that we're living in with all the remote workers and mobile devices and all that type of thing? What's that complication factor look like?
Well, to start, are companies actually doing it? That's almost a big question. Are companies actually encrypting their mobile devices? The computers and the servers have always been the standard, but the mobile devices has always been, kind of left out in the cold. There are
Mhm.
new applications for that. Um, I remember when we used to do phone systems that were premise based, and if you wanted an app on a phone, you had to have a VPN on your phone.
Yep.
Apple would kill the VPN after 60 minutes. I mean, Spencer, you remember those days, troubleshooting all that. So it's always been kind of a hodgepodge of trying to secure a mobile device. But majority of times today, especially the customers who have adopted a SD-WAN topology, you still have a single firewall, whether that's on the customer premise or if that's a network-based firewall. And
Hmm.
that was kind of the adopted methodology, especially like you mentioned during COVID and the rush to have everybody work from home.
Yep.
But what that showcased was a um, sensitivity in that type of design. You now had those individuals at remote locations VPNing into those firewalls. And
Hmm.
so it would go over the internet into the firewall to then go through the protection
Hmm.
at the premise.
Yep.
And so that increased latency, it increased load. We had customers who doubled, if not tripled, their bandwidth needs because they started going home. And
Yep.
so, what 100 devices looking out, well, now you have that same traffic coming in and going out at the same time.
Right.
Um, we had throttling issues where people were bumping up to their connectivity. Uh, some firewalls, sure, we would increase the internet speed, but now the firewall, the customer has to buy a new license to get more bandwidth. It
Or a new
just,
firewall.
or a new firewall. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Um, in the cases where it is a network-based firewall, there are some fixes for that, and it alleviates some of the stress. But it is still just kind of a piecemeal type solution.
Hmm. Yep. And what I'm hearing and what you're saying, it's now gotten more complex and more complicated that you've got all this increased traffic. Um, traditional, let's go back kind of before that pandemic. Everybody had built up their internal network and secured their internal network, had everything kind of rocking and rolling. But, now that you introduce people using cell phones, using personal laptops, using tablet devices, sometimes using all three at one time, right? Now you do increase that load, increase that complexity. And what a lot of people have done is, they've gone out and kind of bought point solutions to kind of fill those gaps or stop, put a finger in the dam.
Hmm.
Well, now you've got multiple point solutions trying to solve that problem, as I understand it. So, and we have the same problem even with branch offices. If you've got multiple business locations where they're all coming back to that central um, data center or connection point, network centric um, uh, area. So, but the other thing too, and Mac, you kind of touched on a little bit. I'm not always, as a remote employee, I'm not always trying to get to something inside our firewall or inside our premises that we're protecting.
Right.
I really need to go out to one of the cloud applications that we now use, which again kind of exacerbates the problem is now not all the data is sitting behind the firewall in the corporate office. Now we've got multiple cloud applications. So it doesn't make any sense for me to drive to the office via the internet, to drive back out and go to the web to hit our cloud-based applications, even Office 365, which is cloud-based.
So let me bring Spencer in on this.
Hmm.
So talk about what we used to have to do in a lot of instances to get access to some of our cloud Avaya solutions, where our IP address was whitelisted. What did that mean for our technicians?
So for our technicians, what that meant was they couldn't just be anywhere and log in and fix that for that customer. What they had to do was VPN back into our office, which would then mask that IP for them in order to make it accessible for to reach that cloud provider. That cloud provider would only let them access from our office IP address or the customer's IP. So when
Hmm.
our technicians were out and about at their homes or wherever they were, they had to VPN back into our office first in order to
Well,
make that
and
happen.
I mean that affected you the most, right? Because you're our mobile employee. So
Yeah,
tell us about how that would, impact your operations.
well, okay. So yeah, so well, I'm not going to say the provider, but we did have a provider that was hosting some Avaya for us. And what that would do, the complications it gave me at the time was once you get on that VPN, that killed all your external internet capabilities. And so now, yeah, sure, I can reach this phone system, but now I can't look up this other problem or stay and
No,
compare with another phone system. Um, and that was with that provider, that was the only way we could get in if I was not at the office physically.
Uh, License registration. If you didn't do the license registration in time,
Oh
yeah,
you
yeah,
had to disconnect, and it
oh
just
yeah,
it
oh
it
yeah.
created a rough environment. And I think you suffered from that the most. We all did. When the pandemic first happened, we had a relatively short amount of time when we were working from home as allegiance, but then as trust, we've experienced the inclement weather. We've gone through the great freeze. We've gone through weird flooding. We've had some crazy wind with some of our employees having their roads shut off from down trees and power lines and stuff. And so as we move towards, go ahead, Spence.
And that's what I was going to say. As we've moved towards, we as trust have been a little better than we were as allegiance because we've moved so many things to the cloud, as a
Hmm.
lot of companies have, and so that poses the problem that we have today. That companies have, because I know we're not the only ones. There's lots of companies that a lot of things have moved to the cloud. Most MSPs are moving a lot of those services to the cloud. And then so the question is, how do you secure those devices that are accessing those cloud
Right.
applications?
Right. We've moved the boundary. This is kind of what I've read in some articles yesterday. We've moved the boundary of the office network. The boundary is now anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Work from anywhere on just about any device for a lot of companies. Take a service organization where you've got service technicians just like we do, right? Those people are out and about all over the place, and they may have a telephone, a cell phone, a laptop, and a tablet. That's three new devices that you've got connecting from outside your organization. So it's about the security of that, but it's also about the communication, the accessibility of those devices being able to access the corporate data or the needs of the corporate. So um, it's gotten hairy, it's gotten complicated. And again, as I said earlier, people have gone out to solve these problems, and they've solved them with this software or this service. And and again, for an IT manager, for a CIO, it is overcomplicated his solution. So Mack, why don't you briefly kind of touch on what what can solve that? What can uncomplicate things?
The main solution for that is Sassy, which is what we're talking about today. Mark said I can only say it once, so that's
And
all
that
y'all
stands
get.
and that stands for what? You know how I am about acronyms.
Absolutely. And this goes back to what Mark was talking about, where we moved the border. Secure access security edge. So instead of having it all at the customer premise, the security is now at the edge, meeting that endpoint where it lives, which is outside of your network.
Which can be any of those devices we've
It,
talked about, right?
it could be any of those devices. It can be any of those services. SD-WAN is a part of a complete secure access security edge solution. See, I didn't say the acronym a second
Very
at a time.
good. Thank you.
But yeah, it involves so much more from a zero trust network access ZTNA. It encompasses CASB, which I don't know what that one stands for, but it encompasses a lot of the security architecture natively instead of having to piecemeal all these solutions together.
Yep.
Next gen firewalls, all that stuff, brings it together, puts it on a globally wide backbone, and it helps solve a lot of the pains and a lot of the problems we were just discussing.
Yeah. And again, this is kind of a new problem, which therefore people in the industry had to develop new solutions that were, like you said, all encompassing, that took into effect the cloud-based applications, the remote workers, the multiple devices, the corporate internal network is now part of that puzzle, and the connectivity of all those things, right? How do you safely connect all those things?
And the technology seems like it's still growing and evolving. So
Yeah,
it's getting better and better every day. You have to, because hackers and people wanting to do bad things to your network, they're getting better and better every day.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And one of the other articles I was reading too also pointed out that people don't have all their cloud-based applications in one cloud,
Mhm.
right?
Very true.
It could be a software as a service, something like QuickBooks Online, but I may also have corporate data in Azure. I might have some in another cloud provider. I might have other software as a service applications. And as we know, I mean, I think we've got at least four that I can think of that we use on a daily basis,
Mhm.
right? Including Office 365, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, at this point, I don't know that I literally have to either physically or virtually come to the office for anything, right? I'm not coming through our network to get to any of those applications. So it does open up. And again, you mentioned it earlier, Mac, and hats off to you guys for making that decision. We are solving this with one of these comprehensive solutions that helps with this. So
I think
But
the next thing to say is just for customers to join us, bring it back up. We've got our next event about this topic, and we thought it was so important to talk about it today to prepare our customers to join us on the 24th at LSUS to talk to our one of our vendors, Cato. We've had them here before, and I can't wait to hear what they talk about. We should have, barring any inclement weather like we just talked about, we should have a customer there who has been through this migration. So you will get to hear from the voice of somebody in the trenches who's been doing this with a multi-site organization. And I'm super excited to hear what he has to say.
yeah, that will be good. That will be good.
And this is something that we're, like I said, this is getting talked about more and more, but you know, a year from now, this will be just kind of common. You know, kind of like we went from like old MPLS to SD-WAN, and now, so we weren't supposed to say it again, but Sassy.
Go ahead.
Everybody gets
I
one.
mean, it's just the evolution. Like I said, this is a lot of people don't know what it even means, like we talked about, but it will become a commonly known thing very soon. It already is in large networks, but even the quote unquote little guy, like we're a small company, you have to have this stuff in place to protect yourself.
It's a dangerous world out there. And yeah, just to reiterate, y'all join us coming up again, July the 24th. Check any of our LinkedIn pages. The invites will be there. We'll be sending out personal email invites to that. Be sure and sign up for that. We need to know a head count. So, you know, we do look forward to that. If you can't make that, we're certainly willing to and able to set up a one-on-one visit with some of these people from Cato, Windstream, Enterprise. Some of our other partners do the same thing. So, yeah, we can set up a one-on-one. If you can't make the lunch and learn, which we hope you will, then certainly allow us the opportunity. So reach out to us.
And I want to stress that he said lunch and learn. It is a great lunch.
Yes,
it is a good lunch.
And it's a free event.
Yes, it is. All right, very good. Y'all join us, guys. I appreciate you chiming in here. Perfect.
Thank you, Mark. Always a pleasure.
All right, thanks.